So if you're going to get into climbing, I'm pretty sure that there's a rule that says you have to buy the TC Pros, right? Either way, I did end up buying the TC Pros, and these are the new updated version of the TC Pros. Now, there's some things that were slightly different from the other version, but mainly a lot of La Sportiva's updates to rock climbing shoes. They're not drastically changing them so far. A lot of the updates have been more of like a materials update or a slight change. And luckily, that was kind of the same thing with these TC Pros, is that they're not a whole lot different from the previous version, but they do have some updates. Maybe some of them are not so popular, but those are kind of other people's opinions. So far, I really haven't seen a huge difference with them. So yeah. So with that being said, let's kind of just jump into the TC Pros. So yeah, right off the bat, these are updated, like I just said. And with this one this was more of a material change. The new TC Pros have like an eco tan leather, so there's no heavy metals in the tanning process. So that's great. It has more of a eco presence with these shoes now. I mean, you're talking about recycled laces, eco tan leather. I think recycled rubber in certain places. I think all the randing is recycled rubber. So it's just kind of nice to see that there was a more eco-conscious view for this shoe. And it is cool because this is probably one of La Sportiva's most popular shoes. So if there's ever going to be a shoe that has that great of an impact, it's probably going to be these if you can switch to more eco-conscious materials. So I think that's kind of why they did it. But luckily in terms of performance, I haven't seen a huge drop in performance from the update. I know some people have said that they've had some different performance issues, like with the new randing, the rubber randing, or with the eco tan leather. I think someone said that it like stinks up faster. I haven't had to deal with that yet, and I haven't had to deal with any of that with any of La Sportiva's shoes that use the new eco tan leather. So I don't know, it could just be them. But yeah, I haven't noticed a huge difference in terms of the update. To me, they still just feel like a TC Pro. They're a stiff shoe, they're a solid platform shoe, they're not the most aggressive shoe. Don't try to do any, I was going to say don't try to do any bouldering, but you can do bouldering, just make sure it's not on slick choss with these, because that's the mistake I made. Either way, they're a classic shoe that really hasn't changed that much. The big changes that they did were I think they fixed the tongue, which that's what I kind of noticed immediately, is that the tongue on the other TC Pro was just kind of weird. It always like folded in on itself, whereas this one does a better job of holding in place, but still kind of does the same thing. So they kind of fixed the problem, but kind of not really. But it's like, is that a huge performance thing? No, the tongue, and doesn't really do anything other than, if it sacks up, then it kind of does something, because then it kind of like cut circulation off from your foot sometimes. I don't know. So, isn't a big deal? Probably not. There are some like kind of weird things that they kind of did. They added like a little like TPU insert right here. That is supposed to protect like the laces, because that's where they found they had an increased wear spot. And I've kind of read some things from people saying that they wish it was on the other side of the shoe rather than on the inside of the shoe, which I guess maybe more makes sense, because if you're like kind of foot jamming, you're kind of putting more leverage onto the outside of your foot. So I can get why that is kind of like a weird little thing right there. So that's kind of like, that's kind of a weird update. But probably the biggest things, other than the eco materials, is that they increased the toe rand area. The previous TC Pro had a slightly smaller toe rand, didn't have as much rubber coverage, where they increased the rubber coverage on this one. That's actually pretty cool for them to do that, because it just adds like more increased durability to the shoe. So that's been really cool to see them be able to do that. But what I will kind of say on the flip side, though, is just the short time that I've had these, I do notice some things that are kind of alarming. I don't know, for whatever reason with these shoes, the rubber is being torn up way more than any of my other shoes. And I haven't climbed a whole lot in these shoes. Like, I've climbed more in my katanas, and I've climbed more in my Solution comps than I have in these. And yet, it's like the rubber, is getting torn up. And I don't know why it is getting torn up. So that's kind of like a question that I have about it. I don't really know why it's being torn up. And like, I would get that if I were on granite or like limestone for that matter, or anything that's really like aggressive. But like, I'm on like slick chots here. Like, just, it's nothing sharp. And I don't know why it's just tearing through the rubber so much. So that's kind of alarming. I don't know why it's wearing so much. So I don't know. But overall, I think other than the rubber, they still perform like a TC Pro would. Like I said, they are a stiff platform kind of shoe. There's stuff that's really good on micro edges. Think about slabs and a lot of like Yosemite climbing for that matter. Like if you're like stepping on smaller granite crystals, like this is going to be the shoe that will support you on that small crystal. And I think that is where they excel. And I'm pretty stoked to be able to use these more for kind of that terrain. I plan on doing some more climbing on granite, and hopefully I'll see more of like the true performance of the TC Pros. So I'm super psyched for that. But overall, like what I've been able to climb in them here, they're really comfortable, and I think that's a testament to them, is that they're probably one of the most comfortable shoes I've been in. They are just like, they're a very comfy shoe. They're very spacious and roomy. I think I've said it a couple times before. Maybe I haven't, maybe I have. But I size these as a 41.5, and I think I could go way smaller for like performance. Like I thought downsizing them to a 41.5 was going to be like, I don't know, like it might be too small, but they're not that small. And I feel like I could go down to like maybe like a 40. I think I could go down to a 40, and I'd feel like kind of more like performance orientated. And that's kind of a weird thing to say. So that's probably one of the biggest pieces of advice I'll give for the TC Pros, is just make sure you try them on first. They kind of fit differently than a lot of Sportiva shoes. Like the Katanas that I have them in a 41.5, same size as these. My Katanas fit a little bit tighter. And like, for instance, like my Solution comps are 42s, and they're tighter in the toe box than my Katanas or these. And knowing that, I could probably easily go to a 40 in these. Yeah, you're just going to want to be aware of the sizing, and just, I do encourage you, if you are looking at the TC Pros, definitely try them on first. You'll save so many headaches if you just try them on, and then you can kind of figure out what size you are, because they kind of play by a different sizing than a lot of La Sportiva shoes. They're a lot bigger of a shoe. They're a higher volume shoe. But that's kind of the reason why they're one of the most comfortable, is that they're not really compressive on your foot. They're pretty spacious and they're really comfortable. I will say though, that when you're in direct sunlight and you start climbing these, they do heat up. They heat up a lot, and that's probably like my one complaint. And then kind of to wrap things up, like my only true complaint that I've gotten with these is that when it heats up that much, and then you're trying to take the shoe off, it's sometimes a pain, because they are kind of like a mid-top, they have a long tongue, and when your foot's sweaty, it's not fun. But other than that, like seriously, these are a great performance shoe. They're a classic shoe from La Sportiva. And I didn't really feel like I really need to go into like how they perform, because they're TC Pro at the end of the day. They're a famous shoe. Everyone knows how they performs. So yeah, I'm just here to tell you that, yeah, they perform at a good high level still. But they definitely have their strengths and weaknesses. So with that being said, that's kind of like a little update or review on the TC Pros. If you have any questions on the TC Pros, feel free to ask in the comments below. Try to get to it as soon as possible. Hopefully I can answer your question. Even if I can't, hopefully then I will be able to eventually answer your question as I get more time in these shoes. But other than that, I think that kind of wraps it up. So that being said, thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.